Hey everybody, welcome to another one of my videos. My name's Daryl Carter. I want to talk to you today, moving on from form lines, but slightly attached, about fence by fence analysis. Now this is how I rate novice chasers over the course of the whole season. I have a database, I build a database throughout the year, get to know horses' jumping techniques, get to know what they're capable of, what they're not capable of, and it really sets you in good stead going forward at different types of tracks. So, just want to talk to you a little bit about that. What is it? It is essentially studying horses' jumping techniques at every single individual fence. It's noting down how many jumping errors that they make in a particular race throughout the whole of that race, noting down how much ground they've lost in that particular race, and then comparing that to the winning distance or the beaten distance over the course of that race. That is exactly what it is. It will give you a broader sight of the form, how worthwhile it is, if it's not. For instance, there's lots of different jumping techniques from horses, and we'll go through that now. So, for example, this is an example I'm going to put up in front of you now. Horse A finishes in first place after a fantastic round of jumping, culminating in only one ground losing error over his obstacles, running out a winner by 2 1/4 lengths over Horse B. Horse B finishes second place after 3 ground losing errors, but jumped well in the home straight to finish just 2 1/4 lengths off the winner. So when analysing this fence by fence, we need to ask ourselves a couple of questions. Horse B, has he lost more than the winning margin at any one fence? The answer in the example above is yes. At fence 4, he almost unseated, costing him 3 lengths. The second question is, how much ground has he lost at his other 2 fences? And the third question is, in an ideal world scenario, would Horse B have beaten Horse A? The answer in this case is yes. So, ideal world scenario, what is it? An ideal world scenario is if all the conditions, the ground conditions, the track, the trip, etc., everything else, favoured all of the horses in the race, they all jumped their fences clean and perfectly, who would win the race? The best horse in the race would win that race. That is an ideal scenario, but we never get ideal scenarios. Horses tend to make mistakes at their fence. They've all got different techniques, as we've just spoken about. So we're looking for horses that have basically been beaten due to their mistakes at their fences, just providing that they're uncharacteristic. That is what we're doing. Now, the bookies are a very fickle bunch, and they will always work on a bare form. I've got some examples of that coming up in a moment. But let's talk about jumping techniques. Now, this method can work for both beaten horses and for winning horses. But jumping techniques, horses are creatures of habit, at least over fences anyway. So identifying their pros and cons is definitely essential in the jumping department. Now, early in the race, it's very hard to spot their jumping frailties, but as the pace quickens, that's when you're really going to find out how good these horses are and how good they can jump, or how bad they can jump, etc. So Vindication is the first example in here. This is an outstanding horse, but he does struggle with downhill fences. That's why he was avoidable at this year's big handicap, the ultimate handicap at Cheltenham, despite being favourite. He has an issue with the downhill fence free from home, okay? So if you go back and we watch last year's JLT run, which I'll put up now, and you focus on the ground that Real Steel in red makes up over this fence on Vindication after he pecks, it's very clear that he does sort of struggle with it. Okay, so that was in the back of my mind coming into this year. So we fast forward to the ultimate handicap, and he makes a very, very similar mistake, allowing the Sipaj, the leader, to gain half a length on him. Now, half a length in this scenario this year was quite a bit because of the weight that Vindication was carrying, and ultimately at the end of the race it was value for more. So it's knowing what horses can do and what horses can't do to give you an edge. There are plenty of other horses in here, and like I said, I've got a database to record their pros and cons. We had Imperial Aura win for us at 33 to 1 this year. We had Champ winning at 4 to 1 in 2 of the 3 or 4 novice chases. So it's worked very well. It's worked for the last few years. And like I say, continuing with the jumping techniques, horses such as Reserve Tank and Black Op are very similar. They clip the top of their fences, as you'll see in these videos. They clip the top, and it loses plenty of momentum, and it is a concern. But knowing these things about these horses is very vital going forward, because you know, for instance, now that Black Hop clips a lot of the top of his fences, he loses momentum. He's been doing it all season. You know that if they drop him back to a sharper trip of, say, 2 miles, for instance, they wanted to try 2 miles with him, you know that he's going to clip the top of those fences and likely be outpaced. So it's definitely worth knowing everything you can know about a horse's jumping ability going forward. If you do know a horse has got a poor jumping ability and another horse beats him by a wide margin, everybody else is going to purr about that winner winning by that wide margin. But you know, because you've been studying all season, you've been studying their techniques, you know that the horse he's beaten in second is a terrible, terrible jumper. So he's likely going to be flattered by the winning distance. But while everybody else is purring over that winner, you should be focusing on what can get that winner beat, because he's going to be overbet next time and he's going to be underpriced next time. So, where do we go from here? There's a great example actually of this. Dynamite Dollars and Layla last season. Now everybody was purring over Layla, winning by 7 lengths. Was an emphatic round of jumping, an excellent foot perfect round of jumping in fact. And everybody was focusing on Layla. People were backing him for the Arkle. It was a ridiculous price. I did an article on it on Daryl Horse Racing .wordpress. But what people should have really been focusing on is Dynamite Dollars. And you'll see here, Dynamite Dollars, how on earth he got to within 7 lengths of Lalor that day after making so many mistakes around the course, including an almost race-ending mistake coming up the home straight. He still managed to get within 7 lengths of Lalor. Now, the bookmakers, as we spoke about, are a fickle bunch. 9 times out of 10, they will work on a bare form of things. So, the pair met again next time out at Sandown in conditions that really should have suited Layla. They put the winner in at odds on. They put Dynamite Dollars in at 5-1. They was focusing on how foot perfect Layla was, and not how the hell Dynamite Dollars got within 7 lengths of Layla. Okay. The issue with this is that Dynamite Dollars was far too big on the face of things at 5-1. Layla, horses rarely put 2 foot perfect performances in together in a season, let alone time after time. So imagine if Dynamite Dollars learnt that from that day, because it was his seasonal reappearance, it was his first time over fences. Just imagine if he would have made a couple of less mistakes than he did that day. And imagine Layla made 1 more mistake than he did that day. That brings them much, much closer together. On my figures, that brought them much, much closer together. And at 5-1, you're damn right you want to be taking a chance and not taking odds on about Layla putting in a foot perfect performance again next time out. Now, there's a couple of good examples of this. Getaway Trump, I'm going to show a video now. Getaway Trump. He's arguably one of the best British novice chasers in from this season in my book. He would have won this race if not for a race-ending blunder. But he still managed to get within 2 lengths of Our Dancer. Now, if this race was run again, it's likely that the bookmakers would work on the bare form and put Our Dancer in ahead of Getaway Trump, despite this massive, massive race-ending blunder 2 out. The winner of this race actually ultimately won the Arkle, so it's very, very interesting. But Getaway Trump was valued for much, much more than the bare result. I'll put up a picture here of how I had the mistakes around the whole of the course at the time, and how the hell he was able to get within 2 lengths of Our Dancer when losing 3 lengths at the second last flight and making errors on the way around is quite remarkable. But it will just go to show you, obviously this is not played out yet, but it will just go to show you that the bookmakers will look at that bare form and think Our Dancer's already finished ahead of Getaway Trump. Right, if they was to run the race again, Our Dancer would be a shorter price than Getaway Trump would, and wrongly so. So it's definitely worth keeping an eye on this. If all horses just jump perfectly, you know, look, I say the ideal outcome would be we would see the best horse in the race, but it's never that easy, is it? Now, there's another horse in here as well called Marie Banrai for Dan and Harry Skelton. Jumped excellently most of the season, but you know, 1 mistake, as we saw in the Arkle, you know, saw Marie Banrai fold. And that is exactly what I'm talking about. There's a good example as well. Marie Banrai against Thomas Darby. Prime example. Thomas Darby went back over hurdles this term. But, you know, I felt he was going to improve. Thomas Darby made 5 ground losing errors and lost 5 lengths at the start. He did only get beaten by a length by Marie Van Rij, who jumped foot perfect around the whole of the course. It drastically over-exaggerates the bare form of Marie Van Rij. Now, you're trying to beat the bookie with this method, and they are not going to put as much work into this as we are. So, the likes of Marie Van Rij was overbet all season. A lot of people fancied the horse for the Arkle, but the horse had jumped foot perfect all season, beaten less inferior horses. We know if she would have come up against the likes of Thomas Darby and he would have made one less mistake, or Marie Van Rij would have made one more mistake, we know damn well that Thomas Darby would have beaten Marie Van Rij very easily, and they felt that to send Thomas Darby back over hurdles. So it's definitely worth having a look at. What we're trying to do is we're not trying to focus on the winner that's won by 10 lengths. We're trying to focus on why on earth that winner has won by 10 lengths. There's always a reason. Always question a wide margin winner. Always go through the races and mark down, and just do it as an example. Just mark down one of the first Novice Chasers of the season. Mark down how many errors that someone makes. Now, the errors, what determines an error is down to you individually. I can't give that away. I do my own way of doing things. But you're looking for ground losing errors, okay? I'll give you that. You're looking for horses that are losing ground at fences, whether that be through interference, through their jumping techniques, etc. But if you follow this throughout the whole of the season, you are going to see a much clearer picture on form, on jumping techniques. You're going to know exactly when a horse is priced up that he cannot jump right-handed, or he cannot go left-handed, or you know that he's on the track that's undulating and he's going to struggle with a downhill fence. You're going to know these little bits and pieces about these horses over the course of the season. And when it comes to Cheltenham, you're going to put yourself in a fantastic position knowing all about your Novice Chasers. Just to round this video up though, Champ, I will just say, is a bit of an enigma. A lot of people slated Champ because he can't jump. Now, what they need to be focusing on is, if he can't jump, he makes mistakes, how the hell is he still winning? That just, it lifts his profile. He is just such a good horse because of those factors. Now, if a horse makes 10 mistakes and still wins, Elegant Escape is another fantastic example. He can get, with big weights on his back, so close to his rivals after making mistake after mistake. But the idea is you're looking for horses that are making uncharacteristic mistakes and are being forgotten about. But Champ is an enigma, so that was just worth noting. But have a look at some of these clips that I've played. Have a look, see what you think. Let me know, like it if you like it. Thank you very much. Subscribe, I'd love it. I'll have another video coming out in the next few days because we're getting bored out of our heads. So I'm going to keep going with this, trying to push my methods on people. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much.